Well, guys, we haven't had a free swim podcast for a while, so let's just wing it. Let me start it off. Last Friday, I was in Flint, okay? And I decided to drive a few miles south to Pine Knob. I wanted to get tickets for the Beach Boys, and I wanted to experience going to an actual box office because you don't have to pay those crazy fees, right? So, I mean, I knew Jared couldn't relate to this. Matt, maybe a little bit more, but I thought it was great because I went down there, talked to the people. I had a couple questions about a couple other concerts, and I'm holding it up here, an actual ticket in my hand. And that's the thing that I don't think Jared will understand. Matt, you will somewhat. I miss the days of having actual tickets and then having a ticket stub that you could look back at and say, yeah, I went to this Queen concert in 1976 and paid $4.50 for that concert, and it's an actual souvenir that today's day and age where everything's on your phone, it's just not the same experience. I'll even tell you, I went one further when I went to see the Tigers and the Giants in the World Series. I was going to get tickets, and I went to the Lions game earlier that day, and I wanted to buy tickets from scalpers afterwards. I had a price limit of, I think it was like at that time, $125. And a couple people came up and had tickets in that range, but they were just paper printouts, right? I said, I want a ticket. I'm going to the World Series. I want a ticket. So I didn't go. So I lost out. But so what? I didn't care at that point. They lost. It was game 4 anyway. They got swept out. But just my point is, it was kind of cool going down to the box office, buying tickets, not paying any fees, and actually having an actual ticket. Any thoughts?
No, it is cool because my parents, I mean, we've talked about it before. My parents were really big, just like you, really big concert goers. And they still have all their ticket stubs of all the concerts they went to, the 60s, 70s. And it is cool to look back on those, to be like, yeah, I paid $2 to go see Bob Seger. $4 to go see Kiss, or, whatever the concerts are. So it is just a cool souvenir. You don't even have to go buy the program or buy a shirt or, any other stuff. The souvenir can be the ticket stub. I was there for it. So yeah, it is one of those things that's been lost with our technology advancement and all the conveniences that we have now, because it is super convenient to just have it right there on your phone. Same with plane tickets. It's still, you just get on your phone, boom, you get on the plane. So it's just one of those casualties. But I have a couple. I have a couple physical ticket stubs from games I've been to, but not very many. Nope, not like you guys.
Having to carry around a physical ticket at the airport, that sounds like hell. That sounds like you're getting it lost. I mean, you feel like you're losing something. You feel like you forgot something every time you're in the airport. Now you had to keep track of a ticket. Sounds terrible. I appreciate the sentiment of it. It is a very, I'm with you. It's like, I don't think I've ever kept a ticket, but you always put it in your pocket. Like, I'm going to hold on to that one. And it always ends up either going through the wash or the laundry. And then it was nothing. I find it funny that you so basically to save money on fees, you drove an hour to pick it up to drive back. I mean,
it's not an hour to Clarkston from Flint. It's not an hour. I can tell you that right now.
But no, I'm with you. I'm actually kind of surprised. I have never seen your little ticket stash. I mean, what are you doing with these tickets?
Yeah.
Point, you got remind me, man. Put them on the wall.
Yeah, remind me next time you come over. I've got them in a box and a little album thing, but I am going to make, I think, a collage, and hang it up on the wall for sure. Because I do have some really good ones, including, like I said, Queen, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones. I've got them all that I went to. So for the most part, that's really cool. It is something I miss. So it was kind of nostalgic to actually walk up to the ticket counter. I remember back in the days, you had either go to Rock-A-Rolla Records in downtown Owasso or at the mall at Genesee Valley. Hudson's used to sell tickets to concerts and stuff. So you went to the ticket window, right?
Did you catch them off guard with what are you doing here? You do realize it's 2024. What are you doing here?
I wasn't alone, man. I'm telling you, there was 6 people in front of me to buy tickets for different concerts. So anyway, that's my
maybe it's coming back a little bit. I've seen people whether with bottle caps or other things. But I've seen people with ticket stubs turn it into a coffee table or a bar top. Right. You put them in, you place them, and then however you want to surface it or whatever, so it's a hard surface or whatever. But that could be a cool thing to do.
Bar top is a good idea.
That is.
I love the champagne problems you've been dealing with.
Well, hold your thought for 1 second,
Okay.
Jared. Okay. Just want to remind everybody this is episode 318 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by the Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center, voted Shiawassee County's best health club and gym. Check out memorialhealthcare.org for everything they offer. I also want to thank our other starting lineup of partners. They include the ALS Association of Michigan, AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, and brand new Detroit Jerky. Detroit Jerky, a vegan, gluten-free jerky. It's the best one in the game. And some great flavors: Michigan Cherry Bomb, Mojito Inferno, Sweet Mesquite sounds pretty tasty. Buffalo Burn, I hear, is really good. And Hickory Cracked Pepper. Check them out online, Detroit Jerky, and you won't be disappointed. All right, we'll be right back. We'll get Jared's thoughts to start things off here on this free swim right after this.
Rivals Taphouse and Grille is the area's go-to spot for the best in food and drink. Meet up with your friends and catch your favorite sporting events on over 20 high-def flat-screen TVs.
And our 120-inch projection screen.
Rivals can handle your large or small parties and is an awesome spot to put on your fundraising events. Weekly food and drink specials including gourmet burgers, wings, pizza, homemade soup, and salads. Rivals also stocks a large selection of craft and domestic brews. Rivals Taphouse and Grille, the official gathering spot of 3 Point Podcast, located on the corner of Shiawassee and M21 in Corona.
Yeah, so while you're making an adventure to the basically a trip down memory lane, for lack of a better term. I was fighting for my life, man. We had a huge. This is what's so weird. We had this huge storm, but I seriously think the storm might have only been a mile wide. Just it seems like it was my little part of Berkeley and Southfield got absolutely hammered by what it felt like a tornado as we were doing it. So, long story short, basically Wednesday night, sitting in my house, and next thing you know, I'm like kind of starting to hear the weather outside, and I'm like, man, it's getting kind of scary outside. I don't know what's going on. I had no idea a storm was rolling in. I had no idea anything was even happening. Next thing you know, it literally feels like our house is about to collapse. Jeez. You look out your window and it's just lighting up the sky, and you could not see 2 inches in front of that window if the lightning was not lighting it up. It was such a whirlwind of wood, and I'm just sitting here. I didn't know what to do. I was just sitting there, basically I guess I'll go lay down. Like, what else am I gonna do? There's nothing I can do is gonna dodge these trees. The next thing I know, as soon as I lay down, the loudest crack I've ever heard happens outside. I don't know what the hell that was. Was that thunder? Was that a tree? What was that? I go downstairs, look outside. It was like something out of the apocalypse. Lightning flashes up the sky. You look outside. There is a tree 4 feet wide just laying down across the road. No kidding. The corner of it was in my driveway. If it had fallen to the left, it would have crushed my house. Probably killed me. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never had fear like that in my heart as when this storm was swirling around. Basically what they called it was 50 mile per hour vertical winds. I've never heard of that. Essentially winds pushing straight downward, I would suppose. But the amount of damage this caused, I've never seen anything like it. I couldn't get off my street. I was stranded on my street because there's 2 big full-size logs running each direction on my street, to the right and to the left of me. My next door neighbor, three doors down, had the house literally crushed by a tree.
Jeez.
I spent 3 hours the next morning cleaning up debris in my backyard, only for DTE to come back later that night, chop down another massive tree, leave the remnants of that. So now I don't know what I'm going to do. Literally so big I can't even move it. They just left it. So that was a nice little pleasant surprise. But it just makes you appreciate things, man. One, and I also, to put a knot on it, I lost power for 4 days.
Yikes.
It makes you appreciate being alive. In that storm, I wasn't worried about having power. I wasn't worried about what I was going to watch on TV later that night. Obviously, I was worried about staying alive. As crazy as that sounds, worried about staying alive and not getting crushed by a 400-year-old oak tree.
Do you got a basement there at all? Any kind of basement?
No, no. We have a Michigan. To be honest, it's kind of weird. It's kind of a little creepy. It wouldn't surprise me if in 10 years I found out there's a hidden prisoner in my basement. There is a Michigan window, a Michigan crawl space window on the side of my house. But I'll be honest, I have no idea how you would get to it. I don't know how anybody would get down there.
Okay.
But No, it was just crazy. It was the scariest storm weather event I've ever dealt with, probably ever will.
Wow.
Just honestly felt like we were in the eye of a storm. This is the only way to describe it.
It sounds like you kind of were. No, storms like that can be kind of scary because, yeah, and I mean, if you have a basement, to just go down to the basement and hunker down.
Mhm.
If you don't, it is kind of like, what do I do? You go in a bathroom, or you go in one of those, a closet or something like that. But yeah, fortunate that no trees fell on your house
Or car.
or your car or something. That could have been bad. But losing power is definitely one of those situations where you realize like how much we rely on power. Everything, you have to, even you start wondering, oh no, my phone's going to die and I can't charge it. And, everything else, your refrigerator and just everything else that, luckily it's the summer. I mean, unless it's super hot and you want air conditioning, but like if it's in the winter, you're like, how am I going to stay warm? You start throwing around those ideas. I was in Connecticut. We've probably talked about it, but 2 of the winters I was up in Connecticut, we had crazy storms that came in and swirled around from Canada. And one of them, we lost power for 7 days. Some people lost it for like 10 to 14 days in the area. And I mean, it got to the point where people were just like, it was just like survival mode. I mean, it really, and this is with like 2 feet of snow, 4 feet of snow or whatever. So yeah, you get to the point where you're just like, I don't know what to do. Obviously you can have a generator, you've got family nearby. You could always go stay with people or do something like that. But no, storms like that can be crazy for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I remember 10 years or so ago, we had the same kind of situation up here with an ice storm.
Yeah,
I lost
Christmas.
power. Yeah, I lost power for, I don't know, about a week and had to live with my mother-in-law. Think about that. So,
I tell you what, that's the first time I ever lost power in the summer. And of course, it's like the hottest week of the summer when I lost it. It was like, when you go camping and you wake up at like 8 a.m., the sun's beating on your tent. That was what it felt like 24/7. No fan. I had no generator. Just sitting there, just sweating it out, man. No, basically getting 0 ounces of sleep. One thing
did you put a lot of work time in to use their air conditioner at work or what?
Right. Well, we lost power at work for a day. That first day, it was huge, and I don't know if that's ever even happened. So, yeah, I wasn't exactly doing that. I had to get this wood out of my backyard. It was a day's job to do that. So, one thing that cracked me up though that night when that happened is, listen, I'm new to this neighborhood, so I don't know these neighbors that well. These massive tree falls, and there's a group of, and it's right outside of my house. There's a group of like 20 people that gather around, almost like something was like a cult meeting. It was creepy, man. You have people out there with like candles, like lights, like it's downpouring out. I'm like looking out my window, like I'm on edge watching this. I don't know why, but I'm like watching them battle this tree. I kid you not, must have been a 500,000-pound tree. This guy walks out with what I would call a do-it-yourselfer brand Ryobi, like electrical powered chainsaw. I'm just watching this from my house. I don't want to go out there because I know if I go out there and embrace this crowd, now I'm gonna have to now I'm gonna have to help these idiots with whatever. I'm being an asshole. I'm gonna have to help these idiots with whatever idiotic plan they have to get rid of this tree at 10 o'clock at night in the middle of like the biggest storm of the century.
Yeah.
So I'm just watching from my house. This guy is taking a Ryobi battery powered chainsaw to a massive oak tree. And I like laugh myself like, dude, I'm going to bed. Whatever they're trying is not going to accomplish anything. I snickered to myself like, hey, maybe, just maybe, I'm going to wake up and this giant tree is going to be gone and I'm going to be able to get out of my driveway. Sure enough, like literally few little saw blades in it, and that's how far we got. So,
I mean, you give him credit for trying, like, hey, I've got a chainsaw, let me give it a shot. And then it was like, yeah, no,
I did feel bad. It's like I don't know. It's like I just, what were they accomplishing going out in that storm, man? Like just chopping it up. It was like people just like loved sitting there and sitting in the storm and looking at this like damage, which I get, but it's like, dude, I had more traffic on my street in the chaos of this than I've ever had at any point in my life. It was like people were just loving coming to take a look at it. Wow. We were zoo animals.
I mean, it's the same like they say about car crashes or other things. People love the storm damage. They want to come see the storm damage, but you realize maybe that you're not quite part of the neighborhood if you're not out there a part of that,
right?
Trying
to
chop
I
up
don't even
this
know
tree,
when they were trying to chop this tree up with a chainsaw. So yeah. So that was my fault. week.
I'm glad you came out on the other end of that, because it is no fun having no power in the heat of the winter, or heat of the summer, or the dead of winter when you're freezing cold. I was going to ask you guys about. I saw that we've talked before about like all the blockbusters that have closed, and some of the documentaries that have been done about that, or other nostalgic restaurants that have closed that we used to go to as kids. I saw Chili's is starting to close some restaurants, and I saw Hooters is struggling and starting to close some restaurants, and it just made me think that like those are kind of two staple chain restaurants that future generations, if they really do start to go away, will be the ones. Like, what are some, Ted, that like Bill Knapp's?
Bill Knapp's is a good one. Yeah,
used to be a big one that like they're not around anymore. So if you mention A&W, I remember my parents used to always talk about they'd go to A&W. There's still like one up north, Michigan, that like if
I have an A&W, old school A&W right up the road, less than a mile. It's awesome. It is some of the best fast food you can get. Honestly.
They have pretty good chili dogs if you like those.
Yeah. But yeah, just some of those restaurants that like if you throw the names out, kids now they're like, what are you talking about, Bill Knapp's? And I was like, it really, like, so now it's hitting me. If I tell my kids about Chili's, they're not going to know what Chili's is. Like, that's such a staple. Even Hooters. Not that I've probably only ever actually ate at a Hooters 2 or 3 times or whatever. But but I was going to ask you guys. So like talking about, there was a tweet last week, and it kind of goes along these ways. People talk about like, man, I miss Pizza Hut, going to Pizza Hut back in the day. I miss Blockbuster, or I miss these restaurants. I miss, all this kind of stuff. Is it really about how good those restaurants were? Like, is it really like Bill Knapp's or some of these other ones, Chili's, or, all these other restaurants? Or was it really that Blockbuster was that cool? Like, do you really miss that, the quality of it? Or is this stuff like just a nostalgic thing? Like, do you have memories of going to A&W as a kid,
right?
Or drive-through movies? People talk about you would go sit in your car and watch a movie. Like, that just sounds awful. When Ted, you talk about you've got a 60-inch flat screen in your basement with surround sound. Like, this is way better than sit in my car trying to watch a movie. So is it about like the quality, or is it about like the experience of going to Blockbuster and trying to find a movie to rent? Or, going to that local restaurant because, the service you're going to get. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's personally more nostalgic. I do. I don't think it's the quality as much as nostalgia and just memories of when you were a kid. Like, we used to go, we loved Frankenmuth, right? But then you ever heard of the Sweden House?
Yeah,
it was a smorgasbord. It was like the original before, like Golden Corral. And when we first went there, you a family of 5 kids, all you can eat, really. So I mean, I miss that, just that whole experience of it, not necessarily the food, because I'm sure it was just completely full of sodium. But yeah, those kind of things, it kind of takes you back to your childhood,
Right. No, like I remember it was a big deal. Like Chili's, we'd go. There was one in Flint or one in like East Lansing,
right?
And like a lot of times for homecomings or prom, even people would like go to Chili's, drive to Flint to go to Chili's for one of those big dances. So it's just funny to think about that. Like that, not that it was necessarily like a nice restaurant, but it was like it was an outing. It was you go out to eat, you go to Chili's. Kind of the same as like you mentioned that. I remember Old Country Buffet. I think there's still some of those around, but
I'm not sure. I think they closed. I think the last one closed its doors like literally last year. I was a big time fan of that place back in the day.
So that's sad if that one went away, because same memories, Ted, that you just said. We would go there not very often, but when we did, that's what I would think. I'd like, you're telling me I can eat as much as I want, and it'd mostly be the cinnamon rolls and the ice cream and the mac and cheese.
Wow.
Well, you probably remember, Matt, the Mexican restaurant, Chi-Chi's. Remember when that first came out and that was huge.
Now, I will say I like there. It is a little bit of nostalgia, but also like the video store thing. Like Netflix was awesome, and I honestly remember when I first got Netflix. It was like I still remember the day. I still remember what I was doing. I still remember the first like few things I watched. That was an awesome day. But I do miss going to Blockbuster like as a kid. Or even like as an adult, you got to see movies you wouldn't think of. And it's Netflix is a similar way with what they target to you. But I mean, you'd be a kid and like you're 10 years old walking down like the horror section and you're just like reading the back of every single DVD, like so fascinated by this horror movie that you're too scared to watch, but you want to kind of get a taste of it.
Yeah.
So I do miss that type of thing. Chili's, I never had a connection to Chili's. I think the only like major chain that I would have a like connection like that would be Applebee's, which is, I mean, Chili's, Applebee's, similar
thing. Yeah.
So, but no, it's a bummer whenever you see places like that close. Hooters, I mean, Hooters has almost been overtaken by places like Twin Peaks.
Right.
Like a lot of these bars. Like I remember Wayside, or not Wayside. I don't know why.
O'Kelly's.
When I was like maybe in fourth grade, we went to O'Kelly's as like a basketball team when I was like fourth graders, and I remember they were like basically Hooters outfits. Then I was like, what the hell is this place? This is wild. So I think a lot of more places are kind of just stealing Hooters thunder. Where at the time, the Hooters brand, that was like, wow, you're like these waitresses are wearing, you know, this type of clothing. So now I just think their thunder has been stolen, unfortunately.
It's an interesting thing to think about because, 10, 15 years from now, you start thinking like, all right, what's the next thing that we're going to be telling kids? Like when we talk about downloading music, you know, kids nowadays, they can't even like fathom that kind of stuff. Or Netflix.
Right.
Netflix used to actually get the physical DVDs in the mailbox and you had to choose, like your subscription was 1 DVD at a time or 3 DVDs at a time, you know, like, so now there's just a warehouse somewhere that's just stocked full of all these DVDs, basically.
I will say, you know, what was the biggest pain in the ass though about renting DVDs? When you had to return them, you always forgot. It was always a pain in the ass. It'd be like a $5 rental. You got to return it the next day. Now it's like a whole nother hassle. That if they could have figured out some way to get around that, they might have survived. I don't know how you would have, but that always sucked, man.
Yep.
The good old days.
So I had in a good news this week for me, this past week. So I don't know if you guys saw, but a big thing in the sports world. Honestly, I'm not sure if it was an ESPN or a Fox production. I didn't actually watch the actual game, but the old Negro League Stadium, Rickwood Field, was that on ESPN, Matt, or was that a Fox?
It was Fox.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Yeah,
it was Fox.
Yeah,
and so basically this awesome game where they played at the old Rickwood Field, where guys like Hank Aaron played. I think Willie Mays played there at some point. A lot of famous players. It's one of only 5 Negro League stadiums still built to this day. So I actually got to visit one that's in Detroit where the Detroit Stars played, Hamtramck Field, one of the other 5. Built in 1910. It was renovated in 2023. This was on Juneteenth is when I went. They had like a home run derby for a lot of the top players in the city. It was awesome. I was blown away by this place. It was truly what you kind of imagine, like for back in those days. I mean, you pull up to Hamtramck, which is this close little, I don't even know if you'd call it a neighborhood, probably a neighborhood, basically. You pull down this street where all the cars are parked on the road because the houses don't have driveways. That's how close these houses are to each other. As you're pulling through these, neighborhood streets to get to this field, you get there. Running along right field is a train track that runs right up against the fence. It's awesome. Left field, you have these houses that kids are literally, high school kids are smashing home runs over this fence and they're going off the house. They have like a DJ or an MC like doing this event. He's loving it every time one of these houses gets smashed by a baseball. And then you got these bleachers behind the field, which are, your classic 1900s stands that they renovated in 2023. Did a great job renovating them, man, where they kept the original brick. It's got the overhang. It just was an all-time experience. Check out that field, man. I get a kick out of those weird little relics of the past that they do a good job of renovating and bringing back to life, like we saw at that train station a couple weeks ago. But this field, it was just, you felt the history as you're walking around. There's historical markers everywhere. There's murals all over all the different walls. It just was awesome. And it got me thinking. I mean, we saw Rickwood Field, which they had that game the very next day on June 20th. What fields or stadiums would you guys like to see some crossover games or just games in general played at? For me, man, I don't know who would do it. I'm not sure if it's Michigan football. I'm not sure if it's Michigan State football, Central Michigan maybe. We need a game at Comerica Park somehow, some way in college football. I would love to see that. I mean, there's so many other cool parks they've done in Wrigley Field, Yankee Stadium. Just for us here in Michigan, let's get a game at Comerica Park. Wouldn't that be an awesome visual to see? I'm not sure what needs to be done to make that happen, but what comes to your guys' mind when you think of that?
I'd be curious why they haven't done that. I mean, obviously the Lions aren't going to play there because they got Ford Field right across the street. But you're right, if it would be even Eastern Michigan or even, like the MAC championship game, well,
Right.
that'd be bad
It's like,
weather.
it seems like a perfect thing for Michigan State versus CMU third game of the season. That's what I see. That's what it's perfect for.
Yeah.
Right. I'd be curious if the dimensions of Comerica, like if they could put a football field in there. I don't know. I would assume a football field would fit, but that might be part of it. I don't know. You throwing that off the top of my head, I'd have to think about it for a minute, because that would be a cool one.
Yeah, that is a hard one to really think of. I mean, on the same vein at Comerica, they've had the Winter Classic at the Big House. It'd be kind of cool to have it there in Hockey Town, right at Comerica.
Yeah, I know. I didn't mean to spring that on you guys. It is a thinker.
It is.
Dude,
but
so,
there are some. But basically, to bring the whole segment whole, what a cool little field there. I'm glad they were able to save it. Ted, have you had a chance to maybe check it out? Seems like something you maybe would have stumbled across once.
You got me intrigued. I've heard of it. I've seen some pictures of it online, but I've never actually been there. Hamtramck, at one time was the Polish capital of Michigan. Right. That's what it's known for. It's kind of evolved from that to be more of part of actual Detroit. But I think that'd be very cool to see. I might have to make a trip down there. My daughter doesn't live that far away from it, so it'd definitely be worthwhile to check it out. And you talked about Rickwood, what a great event that was. So now we got Field of Dreams, which is awesome. And then you got that game, which I'm assuming every year they'll probably around Juneteenth would play a game there. And, and then they had the whole backstory there with the Fox crew and Reggie Jackson retelling his story, what it was like, when he was coming up. And we just, it's funny, this podcast, sometimes timing's not our best suit sometimes, you know what I mean? But Willie Mays just passed away at 93. He started in the Negro Leagues at 17 years old. Still in high school, he started off that way.
That's wild.
He very well could be. I've had my thoughts before about Babe Ruth and whatnot, but Willie Mays may be the greatest player who ever played the game. All five tools, as good as it could get. I remember when I was young, guys, who's going to break Babe Ruth's record? I always thought it was going to be Willie Mays, and kind of Hank Aaron just stayed consistent, and passed him by. Mays finished with 660, but he had the defense, he had the speed, just a class act all the way. The Say Hey Kid, and then we also missed, the Monty Williams story by a day with the Pistons. I mean, I think maybe the best job to have is to be a crappy NBA coach. You get that kind of money.
Not a bad deal. I mean, just before some thoughts on Monty. So yeah, Willie Mays. One cool thing about what's tying in the Rickwood and all that, Negro League statistics are now going to be added to Major League statistics. It used to be separate. So if you had hits or whatever statistics you compiled while you played in the Negro Leagues, it's now going to be involved or included with your Major League statistics, which is just kind of crazy. Why hasn't it always been that way? It's wild that it had to come to some decision to allow that. But also Willie Mays, he went to war for 2 years. So if he didn't have to go to war for 2 years, he may have broken Babe Ruth's record. So yeah, you always hear stories about Willie Mays, and Barry Bonds is my favorite player ever. And, that's his godparent, his godfather. And I mean, Barry Bonds always said that he modeled his game after Willie Mays. So definitely cool. And it was cool hearing all the stories and similar stuff like that when he passed away. Monty Williams, though. So yeah, he got fired by the Suns last year and had basically a $20-30 million buyout or whatever from the Suns. Got hired by the Pistons a month basically later, and at the time signed the richest contract in coaching history in the NBA. A year later, the Pistons say, yep, this isn't working. You're out, $60 million buyout. So in a calendar year, he made $80 million to be fired.
I know.
To be told that you are not good enough, you're not doing a good enough job. Here's $80 million in one calendar year. I mean, he's still only I think mid-50s, or he's 58 or something. So yeah, still young enough. He could still coach, but it really is why would you? Why would you do this? Even maybe you want to work or something, but it's $80 million to get fired is just crazy. The whole thing, it seemed like a bad fit from the get-go. I mean, they paid him so much money and the roster was so bad with the Pistons. We don't have to get into all that, but he did so much weird stuff during the season, weird lineups, decisions, and just whatever. I don't know. It was overall just a bad fit. So the Pistons needed to move on. It's just wild. $60 million to get fired.
Right.
It's crazy.
My one silver lining from that whole thing is, Tom Goras gets a lot about being an owner. Listen, clearly he does not care about money. Which, I mean, imagine dealing with an owner. I mean, whatever, we could say maybe we do. Imagine dealing with an owner who's just a cheapskate. It's like that will not be an issue with Tom Goras. He is going to fund, whether it's hiring, firing, whatever. Money is clearly of no issue to this guy. So one silver lining I'll take from this whole catastrophic year it has been, at least we know we got an owner who, when the time comes, is going to pay guys.
Spend money.
But I think he's got a halfway decent starting core there with Cunningham, Duran, and Ivy, but they still need more pieces for sure. Staying on basketball for just a second here, in the WNBA, you worked that game down there, Chicago and Indiana, and it's so obvious that they need to continue to market the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese angle. I mean, they really do. I mean, it truly is Magic and Bird all over again, just on the women's side. I mean, when they came out their rookie year and they took over the league, I mean, these two girls, or female women, are just going to dominate, I think, and they just need to keep marketing that. Because I will say this, guys, I've never been a huge WNBA fan, right? But I'm checking it out with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I'm checking the game out. I watched that entire game yesterday, and you know what? It's a damn good product. It's good basketball. The production values, I'll give you credit for that, Matt. It was well done. It was like NBA quality. It was great. It was fun to watch. The crowd was great. The announcers were great. I mean, it's a good product.
Yeah, it's one of those leagues, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I watch every single game. If I didn't have to work so many of them, I probably wouldn't watch as many. But because I do work a lot of the games, I know a fair amount about it. It's one of those leagues where the top level is really good. The bottom of the league, and some of the teams that don't have any of the star players, it's tough to watch. But you could say that about the NBA too. You could say that about Major League Baseball. So. If you have the superstars, especially a matchup like the Fever and the Sky with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, sold out arena, it's going to be great. I mean, the Las Vegas Aces are back-to-back champs and have, every superstar on their team, and they play at a small arena. But when the Fever come, they have to go to a bigger arena to fill out the tickets. The Atlanta Dream, the team at Atlanta, they play at a tiny stadium. But when the Fever come, when Caitlin Clark comes, they move to the arena where the Hawks play so they can sell more tickets. So, they should be trying to maximize on this. Like, let's keep this going. Instead, we've talked about it before. There's been so much conversation about just a ton of BS, like, are they treating Caitlin Clark right? Are they giving Angel Reese and other players the respect they deserve? So WNBA needs to try and maximize on this as much as they can.
I'd have even more love if we had a Detroit team. The Detroit Shock with Lambeer, man, they were kind of fun to watch and won a couple championships.
I went to a Detroit Shock game. It was, maybe I've told this story before. I don't, but it's funny. If it was a Caitlin Clark game, like I would have been running to go to this game. It just shows how far that sport, that league, everything has come in the last 20 years.
Right.
Basically, we were given these tickets for free.
Right.
And we stopped off at one of my buddies' houses, or one of my brother's buddies' houses. And there's like 3 or 4 brothers there. And basically it was like, hey, who wants to come? We got free tickets. Who wants to come? It was like pulling teeth, like trying to get these guys to come. We ended up none of them came. It's like, dude, free tickets. Like, we'll get you a hot dog, get you popcorn. They wouldn't come. Fast forward to 20 years, it's like you'd be an idiot. It's like they're selling so many goddamn tickets. You got to move to bigger arenas. It's wild. Right. It really is a cool story to follow. It's going to be fun to see what it looks like in 10, 15 years. Right. If Caitlin Clark has a good career, we keep following along. Whether she phases off or not, I mean, it still has been a big-time jolt that I don't think is just going to return to zero tomorrow if you retired. So it's been cool to see. And I'll say, we were talking about Caitlin Clark on the USA team. I mean, Angel Reese has pretty much the same claim. Why can't Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark be on that squad?
11th and 12th players. Why not?
The viral moments now, pick and roll with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. It's like, I mean, dude, the millions of views are just waiting for it.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it's silly, bad marketing without a doubt. Well, I'll tell you what, boys, let's take another short break and then we'll wrap this podcast up here. All right, guys, before we wrap it up, I just got to throw one little political thing in. This
Right?
year, I truly am having a hard time on the presidential race. It is a tough decision between the two of them. Let's just face it. It's not a good time in
No.
politics
No.
for sure. So Thursday
It's-
night might be worth the watch to check out this debate. It could be must watch TV.
Oh, there's no might be about it. It is, and it's sad. Honestly, it
It
is.
is.
It's sad that these are, and I'm not stating the side that I fall on or whatever. It's sad that these are the two best candidates that we have. One who surely looks like he has dementia, or he's well on his way to
Something
dementia,
going
and
on.
the other one is a convicted felon. And whether you agree or not, he is a convicted felon. So those are our two best options, and they're both in their upper 80s.
Exactly.
And
That's
and
the thing.
and they're
right.
they both have so many issues either way or whatever. And it's just what makes it sad is it's like, how are these our two best options? It
Right.
really is like it's really what it is there are better options. It just shows kind of how corrupt the whole system is, and you got to be in the
Amen.
pockets of the right people, and you got to have the right people backing you and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a shame because it makes it tough to vote. It's like who do I vote for? I mean,
Right.
so it's tough.
I'm surprised you're undecided, Ted, with your Howard Stern interview. I figured Howard Stern, whoever he co-signed, you would have just said, "Yep, I'm in."
No, I will say the Howard Stern interview, he came across really good. So it just depends on the day, I guess. Speaking of Howard Stern, before we wrap up.
Oh no, yep, can't have without our Howard Stern.
No,
Update.
okay.
What do we got this week?
Kevin Costner for about an hour and a half.
Right.
Love
Very
it.
good interview. And I'm
What
really
is-
looking forward to his new movie.
Yeah, I was say, what is it? He's like quitting Yellowstone or something. I'm surprised you
Yeah.
guys didn't have that as like topics number 1 and 2 this week.
If we were doing an official Tedtertainment, I was
Yeah.
going to bring that up. So I'll go ahead and throw it out. We're already running long. We said this was going to be tight, of course. So yeah, the new movie that's coming out, it's like an epic. It's a 2 or 3 part, right?
Four parts. Four parts.
But he was supposed to come back and film this last season. There's going to be more seasons, but it was going to be his final
Mhm.
season in Yellowstone. But I just saw a clip that he said he's done.
Yep.
And it's just like,
So
and I read a bunch of the comments, and some people were like, whatever. He's not even a big part of the show. It's all about Beth and Rip and, whatever, all this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Even if you don't like Kevin Costner, he is is Dutton. He's John Dutton. Like, how are they going to just write him out of this? I like Yellow. And I'm like, how are you going to just say he died? Or like, what are they going to do?
That's what sucks. He got left him out to dry, man. Now they're going to wrap it up in it's going to be a stupid way.
Right.
There's no way not to make it stupid.
I'm going to take his side. I'm going to take his side on it, though. He did not leave him dry. He just wanted to have some flexibility on his schedule so he could do this movie. They didn't work with him. I mean, it came at an impasse. So they're both wrong, probably. But yeah, it's not going to be the same without him.
Nope.
And I'm very interested to see Horizon. I think is what it's called.
Yeah, Horizon.
And I'm very interested. I saw a couple of mixed reviews on it, so I'm going to hold off until I actually go to the theater and watch it. But I'm sure personally I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I like Costner and I like that genre, so it's probably going to be good.
And it's one to go see in the theater. It's like, I mean, like The Revenant, where it's like whether you like the movie or not, it's like you're blown away by the imagery, especially when you're in a theater.
Oh, June 28th, I'm there. I'm there during 4th of July, whatever. I'm going to go see it at the neighborhood cinemas, without a doubt.
So 4 parts all at once?
No. Part 1 comes out June 28th. In August, part 2, and I think the last 2 are unreleased date right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right, boys. I think we made it through another fun podcast. I want to thank the good folks at Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center. Join the Wellness Run Club, headed up by Rachel Smith and Ben Jacobs. A great way to get in shape. Get ready for that second annual Go Blue, Go Green 5K on October 5th. More details at memorialhealthcare.org. I also want to thank our other partners, the ALS Association of Michigan, AZee Branding Solutions, Detroit Jerky, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. I just want to remind you that Chi-Town has a big week coming up. Wednesday, June 26th on the street in Durand, 7 to 9, and Friday night, 6/28. Ribstock in Caseville, and on the 29th, Saturday night, Smugglers Run in Wyandotte, Downriver, Detroit area. So check out the boys. Peace and love, everybody. Be kind. Thanks for listening.